Xbox adds a peculiar new option, and Windows breaks your VPN again. Happy Friday, friends. It's Friday. It's Friday. It's a new month, new you or something. I don't know. That's, I guess, what you say at the beginning of the new year, but it's a new month. We are in the month of May, which means we are just about in the middle of spring. We're getting close to spring, getting close to, like, that quote unquote E3 timeline. We're getting close to a Surface event to build and a whole bunch of other, what do we got? Apple WWDC, we got Google I/O and that sort of stuff. Interesting times ahead, but Microsoft made some stuff and some announcements this week, and so let's just dive in, my friends. Hopefully you had a wonderful week. Here we go. Microsoft is adding passkey support for all consumer accounts as part of World Password Day. So passkey support is really cool stuff. It's still on that, it's obviously it's very new, new in quotations, new to the consumer world and availability, right? This is sort of a future password, if you will. We're not there yet, and the fact that Windows is now having it, or Microsoft's now got it pretty much everywhere, means like, hey, this is going to take time, but it's a cool thing. Definitely recommend reading up on this if you are familiar with this kind of stuff. It makes logging in more secure rather than using your old tried and true password, sort of, if you will. Still highly recommend a password manager. So, combine those two things and you'll improve your security footprint at the end of the day. Microsoft said they're going to announce, Microsoft said they're going to invest $2.2 billion in a major cloud and an AI expansion in Malaysia. Microsoft is finding itself in a position, and not just Microsoft, but like all major vendors are finding themselves like, hey, we need more compute, more localized, and more GPUs. And so they're going to be spending a lot of money. CapEx is usually how it's referred to. And so any company that bases itself on a data center, so you got Microsoft, Google, Facebook, I think there's Oracle in there, Amazon, those guys, IBM, those guys are going to be spending a lot on CapEx and to try to get this AI GPU compute spread out. And so that's not all that surprising. From the file of why, LinkedIn officially launches its free puzzle games to help connect people. Yeah. So I don't know why you would log into LinkedIn to play these games. They probably are doing like a little bit of stretch. Like, these are like brain games, connecting games, and that's good for business. And so you're going to find your next great business deal by playing the game Queens on LinkedIn. This is clearly engagement bait, trying to improve their overall length of time people spend on LinkedIn. And so how do you do that? You get them addicted or get them playing games, because that is what a business social networking needs. Although I will tell you, that is slightly more interesting than the DMs or I get on LinkedIn. They're all, hey, Brad, do you want a contractor for blah, blah, blah? Hey, Brad, do you want a sales pitch? Blah, blah, blah. Like, yeah. Anyways, if you ever go on LinkedIn, you know exactly what I am talking about. From the number files, if you will, there were some headlines this week that says Windows 10 reaches 70% of market share as Windows 11 keeps declining. Also in the same breath, Windows 11 market share on Steam jumps to 45%. So Brad, gosh darn it, Brad, what is the truth here? Well, the truth here is, first off, these are both third-party reporting services. So the Windows 10 reaches 70% market share came from StatCounter, and the Windows 11, obviously, market share on Steam came from, well, Steam. So first off, these are both two imperfect sciences, and they're using a sampling method, although Steam could, I guess, be realistically holistic, but the reality here is that Windows 11, as we all know, has much stricter requirements for moving from Windows 10 to 11. Not all devices are eligible. So there's that natural cliff that are going to keep people back. The second part, two of three parts is, first off, Microsoft has recognized this, and they've actually started bringing some Windows 11 features back to Windows 10. Not everybody's sold on Windows 11. If you're happy with 10, there's honestly not a ton of reasons to upgrade. There are certain things. I mean, I do think Windows 11 looks nicer at the end of the day. That is something I will argue, but that's subjective at the end of the day. And so I don't know if I could make the argument that it's faster or more secure, because Windows 10 is still supported. Windows 11 has a lot of crud in it, and a lot of pop-ups, and a lot of thingy-dings. So I don't think Microsoft has honestly just done a great job of selling Windows 11 reasons to upgrade. And I don't know if that's going to change here once we get all these AI features that are coming. Like, is that going to get people to move? I don't know. And also, are those features going to get backported? Microsoft has already said they wouldn't do backporting for certain features, and yet here we are. They are bringing Copilot back to Windows 10. And AI usage is something Microsoft wants. Maybe that's going to be their differentiator. We don't really know. I don't see a mass migration from Windows 10, with the caveat that enterprise customers will be moving. Not all of them, right? Because you can buy the extended support. That is certainly a thing. But I don't think like next year at this time, suddenly Windows 11 is going to be 70% market share. I don't foresee it passing Windows 10 anytime soon. And so that's what Microsoft's going to have to deal with. We already know the scenario that's going to happen, right? Windows 10 reaches end of life, October of 2025, I believe. A week later, there's going to be some sort of bug or virus or thing that comes out and it's hacking that and whatever. I suspect that if there is an issue, like a major issue, Microsoft will patch it. And you're going to say, Brad, but that's the end of support. Why would they do that? Well, go look at Windows 7. Microsoft certainly patched Windows 7 after it had reached end of life. So there you go. If you're having VPN issues, Windows has broken it again, or I should say Microsoft with KB5036909 is probably the culprit that is breaking that. That is not the first time Microsoft has broken your VPN connection. Just keep that in mind. Asus will also be making some Qualcomm and Snapdragon related announcements on May 20th, which is right around the time when Microsoft will be holding that Surface event, which is right around the time of Microsoft Build. And we all know what's going to be happening here. There's going to be a slew, a slurry, a plethora, a many, if you will, Qualcomm-based PCs being announced, and we'll probably find out their availability, which I think we suspect is sometime around June is the guess, based on what we've heard previously. And so end of May, looks like there's going to be a lot of that stuff. And the nice thing about this is these should all be ready for back to school, right? Because usually Microsoft would announce these things sometimes at a weird time. But if they're coming out, being announced in May, software is supposed to be available in June based on what we know. That's prime back to school season. Maybe they'll actually sell a few of these ARM devices. And from the last file here of no kidding, Bill Gates still involved with Microsoft. That was making headlines. Bill Gates is deep in the world of AI and open AI. Bill Gates is obviously still involved with Microsoft. Yes, he left the board. Yes, he's no longer the CEO. But come on, guys, it's Bill Gates. He's not going anywhere. It's like, it's Microsoft is Bill Gates. And just because he retired from it, he's still kicking a can down the street every once in a while, walking through the offices. That's just Bill Gates. That is what he's going to do. On to the gaming news of the week, because there was just a little bit. First up here, Xbox obviously announced their June 9th event where they're going to have a game showcase. I think the one thing we can guarantee is there will be games. There will be games on stage. The one thing I'm actually kind of wondering is, will there be hardware? Will they announce the Xbox Series S without a disk drive? We don't know. Will we get an Elite Series 3? I'm not so sure about that one. But we will see what they have. Will we see the new controller that connects directly to the cloud? Remember, that was supposed to come out sometime around now, or be announced sometime around now, I believe. So we don't know. And then there will be a direct event after that, which is clearly related to Black Ops, Call of Duty Black Ops. The next version here will be, I think it's codenamed Cerberus, will be announced, deep dive and all that stuff. And so that should be a great event. Hopefully we'll see. I'd like to see, hopefully we'll see a bit about Avowed. That's kind of still high on my list for games I'd like to learn more about. And we'll see what they have up their sleeve. Gear 6, right? That stuff seems like that's going to be happening too. But Avowed looks super interesting. So hopefully we'll see that. Starfield also going to be getting a 60 frames per second update, more graphics controls. I believe this is coming in the fall. This just goes to show, my friends. Remember when Starfield launched, there was a big bit of hoopla. It's like, it's a game at 30 frames per second. That was the game. That was the big news headline. Starfield, 30 frames per second. What is happening with the Series X? I'm almost positive at the time I said, look, give it enough time and they will get it 60 frames per second. Right? They were focused on bug fixing and content completion rather than optimization. And now that they've had some time, they can make those optimizations to get 60 frames per second. I think people think it's easy just to get 60 frames per second on hardware. No, they have to find efficiencies. They can't just add a new JavaScript library like efficiency.js and then all of a sudden they get 60 frames per second. Like, they actually have to rework code. They have to find those inefficiencies. They have to free up memory to make this all possible. And when you're rushing to get the game out, to scrambling to finish it up, like those are tasks that are like, they're nice to have, but not required. Somebody clearly said 60 frames per second was not a reason to hold the launch back. And, well, the rest is history. The rest is history as I fight a yawn. Fighting on here late on a Thursday evening. So anyways, that'll be a super duper update. I believe it's called Shattered Space. Should be looking good. I'll be curious to see what actual content, right? The technical capability updates, but the actual storyline and story arc updates will be interesting. So here's the most peculiar thing in the Xbox world is, well, not this one. Well, I hit the wrong button here. Well, two things. First, we'll go with this one. Microsoft sent out a survey recently asking about a handheld gaming device. So where Microsoft is doing everything that they typically would do prior to releasing or building or scoping new hardware, right? You're doing your customer validation, you're doing your feedback, you're getting feedback loops coming here from the consumers. It's like, what's going to differentiate our device? So when you do that is you put out a survey and bada bing, bada boom. But the more interesting thing that I think is just as telling as the survey is there's a new feature coming to Xbox soon that will remember up to 10 Wi-Fi networks. Why would a static piece of hardware that typically sits under your TV need to remember multiple Wi-Fi connections? Now, you could make the arguments like, yeah, maybe some people move it around. I don't know. Or maybe people are switching stuff. I don't know. I can't imagine people are lugging these things in a volume that would require Microsoft to add 10 of these things. However, it does seem to be like, hey, well, if you're building a mobile device, having being able to remember 10 networks like that would be beneficial. So between these two things here, between the survey and Microsoft adding Wi-Fi stuff, there's definitely something going on. Now, there's another aspect to this that maybe could play into it, right? This is more of just like speculation, if you will. If Microsoft isn't building the hardware and is just going to build the software, like the hypervisor for like, say, an ROG Ally that would run it, it would need that functionality. It's sort of app or a sort of platform on top of Windows so that it could remember those things would also be of value and needed. So there you go. Other things happening besides Microsoft, putting down all the framework for building a mobile device, if you will. Fallout continues to crush it, and Microsoft is very happy about this. Internal musings are very positive on the results of Fallout here. Obviously, it's climbed the Steam charts once again, and that is good news for all involved, especially if you like these sort of video game-based TV shows, series, and movies. Like, Fallout is setting an example of what can happen. Obviously, Halo is also an example of what can happen as well. And so the goal is to make more Fallouts, less Halo-style TV shows, and to figure out how they can repeat the success, or did they truly just catch lightning in a bottle one time? So things to keep your eye on about Microsoft, trying to milk that and continuing to be happy with the results of that adventure. So also on the gaming side, this one's a little inside baseball. And by inside baseball, it's my own company. Sins of a Solar Empire 2, I get asked about this every once in a while, is now, or you can now wish list it on Steam. It will be coming to Steam. Links down in the description below. Okay. Time for my favorite part of the week, which are the questions. First question comes from Samuel. He says, do you believe Satya Nadella has his eyes on his successor? Since his 10th year anniversary was earlier this year, is his retirement coming sooner rather than later? Very good question. So if you look it up, Steve Ballmer is probably the closest analog to maybe Satya, and I don't mean like their business results, but like non-founder CEO. Well, Steve was there early on, so maybe that's not completely true. Either way, I believe Steve Ballmer was there, 14 years? So Satya, I don't think he's retiring. There hasn't been any of that. Now, I can tell you for a fact, Microsoft absolutely has a succession plan in place for Satya. Not just if he retires, but I mean, if you get hit by a bus, unfortunately, right? Microsoft knows what the succession plan would be. Doesn't mean they're going to enact it when he actually does retire. That's more of a succession/emergency plan rather than like, okay, he's going to retire in 6 years and this is the guy that's going to take it over. So I guarantee they have people they think could do it. But we haven't heard any musings about him stepping down. I don't think it's happening anytime soon. At least that's so far what we have been hearing. Rafik says, hi Brad, do you think we will get a Game Pass version of mobile games only and a version for the cloud only soon? And if that happens, do you think it'll increase the number of subscribers significantly? And second, do you think Microsoft should bundle all the subscription servers into one and give Game Pass a big push? So I definitely think they will keep that ultimate SKU, which would be mobile, PC, and console. You could see them trying to do a mobile one if they have enough mobile titles. What Call of Duty Warzone just released. They've got the King franchises as well. You could definitely see it happening, although Microsoft hasn't shown any indication that it will happen. So, it's that at that point, it's really more of just a marketing exercise because the back end's all there. It's just aligning the bundles and then going to market with it if they think it's a valuable solution. So right now, though, I don't think it's I'll probably get called like when they do this in June or something, but I don't think it's an immediate thing because I don't think Microsoft has cemented its mobile strategy good enough yet. You got to remember, the reason why I think they would wait is they're trying to launch this mobile store, right? Remember the European DMA sort of stuff, and they want this Xbox mobile store. If they're going to do that sort of thing, I think it happens in tandem with something like that. Mr. PKI says, any games coming to Game Pass that we should check out? What should you be checking out, Mr. PKI? Well, I mean, that's pretty hard, Mr. PKI. I bet you'd like Little Kitty, Big City. Actually, my daughter was eyeing that one, so maybe that might be something I'd play with my kid. Tomb Raider is coming. Which version? I think it's the definitive edition is coming. And so if you've never played Tomb Raider, I know a lot of people following here have. I know most people have played it, but hey, it's coming to Game Pass. Might as well give it another swing if you want. I don't know. Trying to recommend games to other people is always a difficult thing because I don't know what you like. Like, to me, I'm still going to probably hang up this podcast, go hit render on this thing, and dive back into Age of Empires or Call of Duty Warzone. And so, I don't know. Mr. PKI with the second question, he says, I saw an article that Windows 10 reaches 70% market share, as I've noted in the previous part of the podcast, as Windows 11 keeps declining. Is that true? People are buying new machines and downgrading to Windows 10 like we saw with Windows 8 machines being downgraded to Windows 7. I don't know if people are downgrading like we saw back in the day. Back in the Windows 8 day, that was absolutely a thing because Windows 8 was polarizing, to say the least. I don't know if that's happening. That article and reference there, the actual amount of decline was like, I think 1% or less, which feels like it's very much still in that gray area of non-significant and potentially non-repeatable from a scientific perspective. It's just not significant enough to really determine which way things are swinging, right? You got to remember, just like, what if more people turn their PCs on one week versus the other? And the Joe Finn wrapping it up, he says, have you tried Copilot Pro? Actually, Mr. Joe Finn, I have not. So I've been on the vanilla open AI, if you will. And so I jump between two things. So that's like the full blown, like if I need ChatGPT for coding and development work, I just go to OpenAI. Just where that's the memory habit, and it seems to work very well. And then there's also another service that Stardock will release as part of Object Desktop, I think next week, that I use quite a bit. That's very templatized. It's not you can ask it like anything you want, but that's not the intent of how we use it. It's an internal tool that's now going to become public. So I should give Copilot Pro a try. I don't know what Copilot Pro could have, and this is a loaded statement, that would get me to say, give up ChatGPT, the vanilla version, if you will. And so maybe better integration within my own content, but that creeps me out sort of in a way to knowing this stuff is scraping all my data and I can query it. At the end of the day, though, candidly, there's not much you can do about it. So there you go. Like that's it. That's a week in a nutshell. Good stuff going on. Hopefully everybody here had a wonderful week. She'll be back next week as long as the sun does not explode. Hopefully you had a wonderful week, and make sure to keep it subscribed here because the only BS on this podcast is me.